The honourable member for Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was an MLA in British Columbia, coinciding with the years that the Conservatives were in power under Prime Minister Stephen Harper. And those were years that Canada, and more specifically BC, was moving forward. Projects were getting built under a free enterprise, provincial and federal government. In my riding, we have the Golden Years Bridge, the Pitt River Bridge, then there's the Port Mann Bridge and the expansion of the Trans-Canada Highway. The highway that used to be between Vancouver and Squamish used to be called the Highway of Death because of all the fatalities there. That was expanded. Kicking Horse Pass, the Olympics happened, the Canada Line Convention Centre, a new stadium, hospitals, schools, all throughout British Columbia. We saw tremendous progress. And I know that this was the same throughout the country. I know the New York Times during that period said that Canada had the richest middle class in the world. We had a dollar at par with the American dollar. I would talk to Americans and others visiting Canada, visiting Victoria, where I would be often with in the government, and they were amazed with the prosperity they saw in Canada and in British Columbia. Keep that in mind, Madam Speaker, that between 2007 and the mid-2009, the world underwent the Great Global Recession. It was the most severe economic and financial meltdown since the Great Depression in the late 20s and 30s, impacting housing significantly. Canada weathered this storm very well, and we were #1 in growth. Between 2006 and 2015, under Stephen Harper, there were 2 million housing starts in Canada, while the population growth was about 3.2 million. Using household sizes, those starts were enough to accommodate more people than the population during that period. Canada fared the best in the G7. We were a prosperous nation going from strength to strength. Fast forward to 2026. After 11 years, long years, under this Liberal government and under 2 Liberal prime ministers, we've gone from boom to gloom, from first to worst. Economic stagnation, decline under the Liberals. In 3 of the last 4 quarters, we have shrunk. We're in a recession. We are the only country in the G20 that has an economy that is shrinking. The G20 includes nations such as Argentina, which was an economic basket case not so long ago, Australia, Brazil, China, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, Mexico, whose #1 trading partner is the U.S., like Canada, Russia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, South Korea, Turkey, the United Kingdom, the United States. I know that the Liberals would like to blame the U.S. for all the problems Canada faces. But all these countries are impacted by U.S. tariffs, and some are in war zones. But credit must be given where credit is deserved. The Liberals excel, they get an A, at building bureaucracy, at increasing red tape, doling out money to friends and families and to themselves. Since I've been elected to the House of Commons in 2019, it's been one scandal after another. You get numb after a while. Conservatives had their scandals also. We had one lady that resigned as a cabinet minister for having a $16 glass of orange juice. The Prime Minister promised to double the housing construction to 500,000 homes a year, to move at speeds that we haven't seen in generations. How has that turned out, Madam Speaker? Over 1 year in, the result is the exact opposite. Fewer permits, fewer starts, and a housing crisis that keeps getting worse. For example, Toronto is experiencing a major housing construction downturn, a crash. Starts are down more than 50% in the last 3 years. New condo sales in the GTA collapsed to 1,599 units in 2025, the lowest annual total in 35 years, 91% less than the 10-year average. But this must be kept in context. Canada's population has increased by 2.5 million people in the last 3 years alone, under the Liberals' chaotic handling of immigration. Construction should be skyrocketing, not plummeting. The Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation says that we need to build 480,000 homes a year for the next decade. We're only expected to build half of that this year and only 212,000 units by 2028. Meanwhile, 131,000 Canadians who used to work in construction are employed as of April, and half of home builders and contractors are reporting layoffs in the first quarter of this year. But, Madam Speaker, maybe there's a strategy, and under this political madness, I think, Madam Speaker, maybe the intention is to make things so bad that when there is a change, I think there was some positive news with the numbers today, they'll blow the trumpets, bang on the drums, and say how they've turned things around, how marvelous things have become. Fail. It's not a new day. It's not a new government. It's the same old, same old. Instead of a plan to build homes, the Liberals are delivering a fourth housing bureaucracy. Far from building at generational speeds, it's taken them a year to introduce legislation that still builds no homes. Even when homes start getting built, the Parliamentary Budget Officer found Build Canada Homes will add just 5,000 homes per year, 1% of what the Liberals promised. You do the math, Madam Speaker, of how much is being invested right there and what that equates to as far as cost per unit. More bureaucracy, more red tape, more cost. I recently had a roundtable with builders and developers. They are asking for less government in the home building process, not more. Ever-increasing regulations are killing the market and driving up construction costs. Federal, provincial, municipal regulation, taxes are all adding costs, not just to the builder, but to the home purchaser. If we are to make housing affordable for Canadians, we need to cut the cost of building and build more faster. C2 doesn't build and it doesn't cut costs for builders. What does it do? It builds a fourth government bureaucracy. That's an F for fail. I was a teacher, Madam Speaker. You can see the stats here, very clear. Canadians used to be able to buy their first home in their 20s and in their early 30s. Realtors in Vancouver tell me that it's now an anomaly for new home buyers to buy and to purchase a place without getting significant financial help from their families. It's building a sharp divide in Canadian society of have and have-nots. And this is not good, Madam Speaker. It's becoming dependent upon generational wealth rather than someone to be able to make up on their own, even with a supposedly great salary. Conservatives have a plan, Madam Speaker. Cut the GST on all new homes under 1.3 million, saving families up to $65,000, and unleash new building. Tie federal infrastructure dollars to home building. Municipalities must permit at least 15% more home building each year to get things done. Cut development charges by 50%, because that's one of the number one costs of construction are all these regulations and permitting. End the capital gains on tax on reinvestments in new housing in Canada, and unlock billions of dollars of investment in the country's home building sector. Canadians should be able to earn a strong paycheck in a thriving economy to buy an affordable home. It used to be this way, Madam Speaker, and it can be this way again. Thank you.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Speaker.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, it's truly amazing how the Conservatives love to give misinformation, not only inside the chamber, but outside the chamber also. Take a look at what the member just finished saying. He said, you know, the government in the last year, and he's being critical how we're doing the opposite. And then he uses the example of immigration. He says that the immigration numbers have gone up by 2.5 million in the last 3 years, and then he goes on to blame the Prime Minister. This Prime Minister, Madam Speaker, in the last year, we've actually seen a decrease in immigration. But yet he tries to give the impression that the Prime Minister and this government has not stabilized the immigration issue. That's a sample of the misinformation that Conservatives pump out day in and day out, inside the chamber and outside the chamber. Will the member apologize for providing misinformation once again?
The Honourable Member for Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge.
Madam Speaker, I want to apologize for the fact that I'll probably be just too nice in my remarks to the Liberal. It's madness, and it actually just goes, it just proves the point that they might see a slight change and then blow the horn how wonderful they are. Lord, it has been a disaster. And now they're saying, oh, immigration is down. Well, yeah, from historic highs, they tweak it down just a little bit and say how great they're doing. They have made a total mess of things. We got under the Conservatives, 2.5 million homes during the time under a population increase of less of what has increased over the past few years. So that is, I hold on to that F for failure for the Liberals.
Commentaire, questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Sandwich Profiles.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I find it discouraging, as I'm sure many members do, when the debates get overly partisan. I didn't find the Honourable Member for Pitt Meadows to be particularly partisan in his comments, and in a weird show of solidarity with a former member. I would like to point out that poor Bev Oda for years has been vilified for something that wasn't her fault. It is her fault that she's addicted to smoking, and her staff put her in a non-smoking hotel and she asked to be moved, and she never bothered to check that where she was moving to, it was impossible to order breakfast without getting a $16 glass of orange juice. So sometimes members in Parliament, there are many things about which Bev Oda and I disagreed, but I served at the same time with her, and we did share a love of dogs. So I'll just put that out there. But my concern with this bill, I will agree with my honourable friend from Pitt Meadows, is the creation of new bureaucracies. Bureaucracies on bureaucracies. And I will address this when I get a chance to my speech, but that doesn't mean that the Build Canada Homes idea is a bad idea, but how do we get more efficient delivery from a speech and money and a commitment to actually getting Canadians homes?
A very brief answer from the Honourable Member for Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge.
Madam Speaker, how do you do it? You move it more into the private sector as opposed to keeping it into government hands, government bureaucracies, where it goes to friendly, giving jobs to friendly insiders and going nowhere. That's the problem. They've just been building bureaucracy. It has become a disaster for Canada.